Hello, welcome to another episode of Wealthy Minds Decoded. My name is Minesh Bindi.
And I'm Andy Shaw.
Thanks for joining us for another week. We've got our guest director, Pete. Say hello.
I'm the actual director, but we have a guest to the show. Her name
is
Nicola. She's back.
I will do that introduction as I did last time after you say hello.
I'd just like to point out I'm not a guest. I'm a bit of a fixture and fitting at this point.
And I'm starting to look like one.
And we even have my wife and family here today as well.
Hooray!
So this is good. So
mate.
Thank you for joining us. Part one, we're going to talk about something that's fundamental to the difference between a wealthy mindset and a poor mindset. Pete, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about.
Get on with it, mate.
Today we're going to discuss how 99% of people work for money, opposed to working for happiness, regardless of money.
Right. This is a fundamental key difference between a wealthy mindset and a poor mindset. A wealthy mindset will work to create value, and money will be a byproduct of that value creation. And a poor mindset will work just enough to get money to pay their bills, wages, expenses, and a holiday, whatever their expectancy for their lifestyle is. What this does is it limits your wealth attraction ability, because what you're saying is, I'm only going to do enough to get enough. Therefore, you will do enough to get enough, and that limits your wealth creation.
Yeah, they're working because they have to, not because they want to. Yeah, whereas successful people work because they want to, not because they have to. I don't have to work. You know, after I went bankrupt, the wealth I created for my wife was more than enough to sustain me. I could have sat on my backside. I could still be sitting there now doing nothing at all. But it's a case of I worked because I wanted to. It was because I enjoyed doing what I did. And successful people do this. Other people would be, people with a poor mindset would be, right, well, no, if I've got enough money, I'm going to go off and do something else. Well, that's fine. That's not a problem if that's the thing. But it's a case of don't go to work for money then. Create something that's going to produce the value that then you can give up and go and do it. But it's going to work with the mindset of I have to do this
so that I can get money. It's going to take mentality.
Yeah, it's a case of that's going to keep you trapped in a perpetual loop where you're just wishing for retirement. So you're going to waste the prime years of your life looking to get to the retirement point when you retire and get what you want. Well, why not just have what you want now? Why not go and figure out how to create what you want and live that entire life when you're still young enough to enjoy it, not just wait until you're 65, 70, 75 before you start living. To me, that's insanity. You know, a wealthy mindset will do today what others won't. So he can have tomorrow, or she can have tomorrow, what others can't, because they just go and create. Because it's about going and creating value.
Okay, so I think you've just covered part two in part one, but anyway, we'll just act like we haven't done that, and we'll just repeat everything that he just said in about 5 minutes' time. What this does is it puts you in a very negative state of the ability to attract money. The spiral turns around because when you're going to work for money, what you're saying is, number one, I'm worth this much, whatever the amount is of the wage, therefore you will get that much. And number two, what you're saying is my output will be limited to whatever amount of money that I get, which means you're really a worthless part of, well, not worthless, totally worthless. You're a devalued part of what you're here for, which is to help people, right? And so that's the life that you live, and most people go through that forever. Why do you think they go through that? I think it's conditioning from.
It is conditioning. It's
a very young age.
It's a byproduct of the school system and the way everybody's educated.
Just work so you can get this.
Well, you go to school so that you can learn, so you can go and get a job. And you.
More importantly than that, you work, do your exams, so you can get an A.
Yeah.
You're not saying I want an A and I'm going to work until I get an A.
When we saw Steve Wozniak and he said, I've never understood the school system. Why don't they just say, the child go, I want to get an A in this, and I'm going to work until I get an A. Whereas in the school system, it's a case of you go and do your work, and you get graded at the end of the week of what you produced. Well,
that's the job system, just with a different currency.
Yeah, exactly.
Grade versus money.
Yeah, you have to. You've got to create a state of mind in your own mind where you go, right, I demand more. I demand more than this go to work for money. If you've got to go to work for money to produce what you need today, it's a case of, right, well, be as good as you can at it. Become indispensable, as I've said countless times before, become indispensable at the job you're doing so that it gets your mind into the culture of expecting more. And once you've got your mind, you've trained your mind by being brilliant at the job you're doing, setting up your own business and doing something you love is easy.
Yep.
But this all goes back. I mean, this is as old as time.
Yep.
People have been pre-programmed by society to believe that money is not a good thing. Money is the root of all evil. Greed is bad. You know, people have been pre-programmed to already accept that you don't need money to survive.
Well, I think the programming comes from you're programmed to have to work for money, and work is programmed as being bad. Therefore, you won't work too long, and therefore you won't make money. I think the super wealthy actually tried to program that in a few centuries ago. It works, you know, when you've got one employees.
A mentor of mine called Ted Nicholas, who's a very successful copywriter, you know, sold billions of pounds worth of materials around the world for different companies, and a huge consultant. He's in his 80s now, and I was reading something he gives out at all of his seminars, and he said, if I had my life again, there was a thing at the back of this thing that said, if I had my life again, I wouldn't retire for the 3 months that I retired. I know it was only 3 months, but what a waste that was. I now never plan to retire again in my entire life. And he's in his 80s because he's realised, as all successful people do, that if you're doing what you love, you're never going to retire. You slow down a bit, but you never retire because you're doing what you love. Why would you give up your hobby? Why would you retire from your hobby? To need to retire is a statement of you don't love what you do. You know, if you don't love what you're doing, then change it. Decide to change it. Okay, what do I have to do to change it? Well, the first thing to do to change that is to become brilliant at it. Right? And all of a sudden, magical things will start happening in your head, and all of a sudden, opportunities will start presenting themselves to you. Because what's happening is you're training your mind to go and create. You're like a child again. You're getting your mind back to where it was when you were a child, and you love what you do. My son came back from school. He's just started the upper school a couple of months ago now, and he came back and he said, "Oh, I don't like it." I said, "Well, why don't you like it?" He said, "Oh, it's just boring. It's this." I said, "Well, are you asking why?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, go and ask why. Ask why to every question, everything the teachers tell you. Ask why. Why is that then? Why does it work like that? Why?" And that's the whole culture. It's a case of make it interesting again by expanding your mind, by asking why. You're not letting the education system, because the education system's still going to you. If you're 40 years old sitting in a job, it's still training you today because you're allowing it to.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to actually break out of that. And sorry, I'm being waved at from over here.
No, finish you.
Yeah, you've got to break out of that so you can go, you know, to get to the next stage, to get more. You've got to take your mind away by feeding it with the sort of energy that will just create an abundance of whatever you want from life. And you do that by becoming brilliant. If whatever job you're in, if it's an office clerk or something like that, be the best. Be the best has ever been. And that creates something in your mind, and you'll all of a sudden be able to, that's a wealthy mindset. Doesn't matter what job you're in, that's a wealthy mindset. And that wealthy mindset will create for you whatever you need. And you'll stop going to work for money, and you'll start going to work because you love it. And as you start going to work because you love it, so you'll create something you really love, and that job will be a case of, well, I can't do that job anymore because I love it, but I'm going to love this more. And you'll just do that. And then all of a sudden you won't be going to work for money anymore. The money will be a byproduct. That'll be just a result of you creating value.
Can I share something that happened to me when I just had my second baby? I needed to go back to work because my husband was made redundant, and I went into an employment agency, and they told me that I was worth £12,000 a year. This was in 1998, and I know it. When you think about it, it's unbelievable. And I stood there and I sort of believed them for a little while because they put a value on my skills. They didn't know anything about me, but I could type, so that made me worth £12,000 a year. And I drove down to one interview that was down the M40, and it was grey and it was raining, and this interview was at an aggregates company, which is a big piles of grey stone. And I went in to be interviewed for this job. And I drove away from there, and I remember thinking, God, if I get that job, I'll kill myself. If I don't get that job, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I stopped on the road and cried in the rain because I was so depressed at the idea that that was all I was worth.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the turnaround for me, because I knew deep in my heart I was worth more. And as you were talking about the employee mentality, I remember that every job I've ever done, I've given it everything I've had, and you enjoy the job more. But the other reason to start something on the side of your job is because it increases your sense of value of what you're worth, because you're not then just worth what they've told you you're worth.
No, you're worth more.
Yeah. I actually, I agree and I disagree. I agree that that's what it does, but only if you have a certain mindset. If you've got the mindset of, what most people, and I've experienced this with my own friends, is that they'll go to these careers interviews and say, that's my limit, that's what I'm worth, because someone told me that that's what I'm worth. So it depends on your mindset. You've got a wealthy mindset, so your response to that is going to be different to what 99% of people would do. We're too used to saying, when our teachers hand us a graded sheet and say, you are worth an A or you are worth a B, we're too used to having other people say what we're worth.
To accepting it. We have been programmed to accept what they say.
Yeah. And that's what screws people up.
Yeah, and on that day on the M40, I decided that was rubbish, and I wasn't going to accept it.
And then the perfect example of this, even though we've sort of screwed up the show schedule, the perfect example of this is what I like to call the Canary Wharf mentality, which is where I'm from, and I see it
That's
all
part
the time.
3. We're going into part 3 now. Pete was supposed to be saying that.
Yeah, but he's trying to round it up because we've talked about...
No, I just wanted to... It's now time to move into part 2, which we've done at part 1.
So I think
part 3.
We're into part 3 now.
Part 3 comes after part 2.
Yeah,
no,
but we've done part 2.
No, you didn't. You skimped on it.
Oh.
Go on then, please enlighten us.
You need to go deeper, and I mean deep.
On what?
I thought we did.
I think I just did on that.
No.
That was pretty good. That's why I was shut up.
Creation of value. Rather
I can sum this up in one line. Right, part 2.
You skimmed on that, yeah?
Part 2.
I did it because it was in part 1 when I shouldn't have been talking about it.
But it's done, right? But I can summarise it, right?
You need to fire the guy that... Oh, it's you that writes these, actually, isn't it? Carry on it.
Part 2, right? When you focus on creating value, what that allows you to do is... Sorry, when you're not focused on working for money and you're creating money and all this other stuff, you can focus on creating value, which then will lead to money being attracted effortlessly, because the universe wants you to create value, and then you're in alignment with the way the world works and the natural laws of it. So that's part 2. Should we move on to part 3 now? Because we covered most of that in part 1, because we blended the two.
Let's cover that a little bit more, David.
Let's talk about the joy of creation as well, because there is an innate joy in creating something.
Well,
from nothing.
if you people are interviewing, there was a study done which was interviewing people within a few weeks of their death, and they said one of the primary wishes that every single person had was they wish they had left more in their life that lived on after their death. And this is what creating value is all about. If you create value and you produce more that lives on after you die, it's a need. It's a human.
It's a legacy.
It's the need we have, and if you can,
which is one reason why we're doing this show.
Yeah,
right.
It's like these videos; they stay forever.
We talk about this over lunch, but that's limited to me and Andy and whoever else has got the privilege of having lunch with us, right? Whereas we do this show and we record it and we put it online. People can watch this all around the world for generations to come, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing it.
The honour of having lunch with us.
The honour and the privilege.
The honour. Get that, yeah?
I thought it was the other way around. The privilege of having curry with us later.
We're having a curry later.
So why is it, Manesh, we have emails in from people asking me to what time zone you reside in so they can move out of it?
Right, and the other thing I was thinking when you were talking about the thing about becoming the best you can be as a job, even if I used to waitress. Actually, I loved being a waitress, and I loved giving people great service, and I loved making them happy. And that is a very attractive quality, isn't it? When someone the law of attraction is going to work for you if you put everything
if you're happy,
into what
if you're happy about it, sort of thing. And even if it's a job where it's impossible to be happy, you can cultivate that happiness within yourself. It's a choice. Happiness is a choice.
This is actually a big mindset problem, because what will happen is you will really enjoy it and you'll start attracting more of that. But then the rules of your mind, which actually say, this is how you will experience life, say to you, because you just heard of someone in careers say to you, oh no, but as a for example, as a waitress, you can only earn, I don't know, 15k a year. So suddenly, even though you love it, you're stopping the universe's flow of money to you because your rules say I can only earn 15k a year. Therefore, guess what? You'll only earn 15k a year. So it's a positive as long as if you remove the limitations of wealth attraction to a certain occupation, you can become phenomenally wealthy in anything. And one of the ways to do that is ask yourself and look for proof and evidence of other people in that occupation that are earning way more than you, earning more like what you want to earn. And if they can do it, why can't you? Right? And that eradicates that stupid belief that you've got right there and starts the flow of money coming in.
I always looked at it, when I was doing the work I used to do as a manual labour, whatever anybody else is doing, I should be able to exceed that. And I did. Every single job I went into, I exceeded whatever anybody else was doing. It was a case of that. All they were was a benchmark to show me how far I should be going past them. That was it. And I had great fun doing it. I used to go to companies, and I had a little bit of a sadistic streak then. I still got a little bit of it now, where I'd go to the company and I'd say, "Who's your fastest fitters?" And they'd say, "Oh, Bill and Fred." I go, "Can we work alongside them?" And I'd do it on purpose, just so that I could finish the day. I could finish at 1 o'clock and they'd still be there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'd do it on purpose just to, stamp my authority, sort of thing. And it was, it's a weak mindset at the time. I don't do that sort of thing now. Anyway,
of course he doesn't. The branded version of Andy Short doesn't at all.
Do you think wealthy mindset people have, do this stuff not necessarily because they're competitive, but because they don't want to get bored?
No, exactly.
I throw myself into everything, so I'm terrified of being bored.
Yeah, exactly. How I did it with how I kept from being bored in a manual job was to just
competition.
Competition.
That's
to get faster and faster at it, and to be the best I could possibly be at that.
Competition is good when it's forcing you to become more successful than the other person. Competition is bad when it's forcing you to wish failure upon the other person. Right? That's the difference. Two energies of competition.
A bit like when somebody's bet you a bottle of champagne, right?
You have to get that.
That's not competition.
And that bottle of champagne's due on the cruise, I believe.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
All right, anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, well, I'll just recap on that. Manesh had the gall to bet Andy a certain amount of money.
Pete is offended. Pete is offended.
Champagne over a certain bet.
We were at an exhibition last week, and
they were at an exhibition last week, which is full of people that are not in their target demographic, or actually are perfectly in their target demographic, but don't know that they need the help that Andy provides. So I said, first of all, I laughed, and then I said, "Good luck trying to sell an X number of books," and they apparently think that they've won.
There's no apparent.
So, however hard Manesh tried to manifest bad things for us,
no, I don't.
he lost.
He doesn't get it, does he?
And what happened was, it was a case of what I tried to do the previous week was I tried to up the bet because I knew we'd won. Right? It was a foregone certainty, and I tried to up the bet.
If only people knew the truth.
But somebody wimped out on that. We won't mention any names. But somebody wimped out on it. Anyway, should we move on to the last part?
We'll move on now. So this is part 3 of the show. This is normally where we like to do something else, but today we're not going to do that. We're going to do something else.
Oh, yeah.
Something else instead of something else.
And being that the listeners know what I'm talking about, but no one else does.
It's a case study.
It's not something else, it's something else, yeah?
Something else.
Fine.
And not the something else you thought it was going to be.
Right, okay.
It's something else than that.
Today we're going to talk about society's problem in general. Now, this is commonly known as live to work, not work to live.
Yeah.
A few of you, maybe 2 or 3, might have heard of it known as Manesh.
It's known as Manesh.
Your opportunity now, Manesh.
Right. So, what we're going to talk about right here is instead of doing a case study on a certain person, we thought we'd adapt the case study and talk about society in general and culture, because what we talked about today is very important and it's an inherent problem in pretty much 99% of people. So rather than case studying a single person, we thought we'd case study society. In my area, in Canary Wharf in London, which is where all the big banks have their buildings, I call it the Canary Wharf mentality. What did you call it? Work to...
The world, Manesh, has called it since time began. Live to work, work to live. But you carry on.
Live to work, work to live, right? Call it Canary Wharf mentality. It's the basic principle of working for money. And I see it every day. You see people in Canary Wharf that are miserable going into work because they have to earn a wage rather than because they're going to create any value. In most cases, they think they're creating value because of the way the banks condition people, but they're not. They're not creating any value, and instinctively they know they're not creating any value. And so they're miserable, yet they go in every single day.
Well, they have to.
Because they have to.
Or rather, they have the belief
that they have to. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's a case of if you...
Is it really a case of?
It is a case of. It is a case of. Right? I can't stop saying this damn saying.
No, you tried to say
a few weeks ago,
it's
I gave
more
up,
a case of, or it's not a case of.
I gave a go, and it just didn't happen. So anyway,
Minesh used to say, what was the word Minesh used to say?
Irregardless.
Irregardless.
But do you know what's funny? Do you know what's funny?
And do you know what they labelled that on me?
No, but do you know what's funny though? Regardless of that, I stopped saying it. I stopped saying it.
You stopped saying that when you had that
so.
industrial colonoscopy.
Thank you.
Thanks. That picture is beautiful, Pete. I know what you think about now. This is great. I'm not comfortable sitting here. I think I might need to swap places.
Is that because of something? Anyway.
Yes.
Well,
it's a case of.
Anyway, now.
I didn't hear that.
So what should people do if they are recognising themselves in this? If they know that they are in the Canary Wharf syndrome?
Well, the first step is acceptance.
Okay.
So the first step is...
Yes, I've been doing this because I've been wanting to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the conditions that you...
What's the next step? The first step is acceptance. That's always the first step. Acceptance of what is. From that point, it's a case of where can I go from here? What can I do? What are my choices? Well, the first step I would always take is become as brilliant as you can be at what you're doing now. That is the first step.
Strive to be the best regardless of the money.
Yeah. It doesn't matter about the money. The money comes later. Yeah, you go and create value. Money follows it. That's it. If you look at Think and Grow Rich, The Science of Getting Rich, any book it says go and create value and money follows it. That's all you have to do. So you have to take away that mentality and that belief that the only way you're going to get money is if you go to work for it. Because if you look at all of the successful business, they've got a creative value for people. Look at Facebook; it's perfect value creation. He's created a platform for us that we all use. So he's created massive value, and he's charged us next to no money for it.
And
money for it.
And he contemplated that it could be worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So he set his rules and beliefs of life on that. If he had contemplated, no, this is not worth anything, but I'm going to do it anyway, guess what? He wouldn't have got rich. Simple as that.
Yeah, so you just design what you want. You think, right, is this of value? When I create something of value for people, it's like when I wrote my first book. I looked at it and thought, right, well, anyone who goes and buys a single property from this, it's going to be worth £25,000 to them. So I'm selling them a £20 book that's going to, if they go and apply what's in it, any idiot can make 25 grand from it. That's it. So £20, they make £25,000. Massive value creation. Guess what? Flew out the door. We sold, thousands upon thousands of these, and people went out and made millions.
And they used them to keep their doors open as well.
And they did. They were good for keeping the doors open because there were so many pages in it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think anything else that we want to cover? No? Cool. All right. So thank you for joining us for another episode. Make sure you visit the website. A lot of what we talk about progressively is actually dependent on you understanding what we've already talked about and discussed in previous episodes. So make sure you go and do that. If you're new, make sure you catch up on the previous episodes. If you want to leave us a case study to discuss and help you with, you can leave it in the comments for the episode, for the blog post regarding this episode. And yeah, we shall see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.